I'm Eva Oh, and this is the Teakink podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to the teakink podcast. Yet another foot on chest scenario. But who do we have today? No names. Just describe your head state.
My head state?
Yeah.
In terms of
In terms of today.
Okay. Well, the head state was quite nervous, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Also excited. Because, well, I've seen a few of your things already, especially your podcast. And this feels very strange. We're on the other side of it now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But in a good way.
Yeah. So nervous for the newness of the experience?
Yeah, I wasn't really quite sure what to expect. In my head, what it might involve. But yeah, just the unknown, I think.
Okay. And how do you perceive my podcast as somebody who is on the watching end normally?
Well, initially when I came across it, I just think it's great to hear from people in the scene in general about their experiences. But I think even more so from a dominatrix, because that kind of behind the curtain, I don't think you get very often, but not in such an authentic way, such a down-to-earth way. And so it was always been great to listen to that. But before then as well, the interviews that you would do with fellow dominatrix as well, with the tea and just the chat, rather than presenting just a persona of sorts, it was just a chat. And I don't think you get a lot of that, and so it's just genuinely very interesting.
Was there anything surprising?
I think just how authentic it was, to be honest. Because, I've been in scene quite a long time, and I think it's totally fine to have a persona. Like, I think a lot of people have in the scene a persona, and that's absolutely fine. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily maybe even connect to that persona, which is, again, totally cool, totally fine. But with this, there was that connection between, work, relationships, personality. So that's what made it interesting to me.
Okay. And do I have a persona?
Well, I think I mentioned this to you before, but when I first of all watched those interviews and then the podcast to that, there's a lot of generosity there, a lot of warmth, a lot of humor, and again, I think that's what made it for me quite intriguing, because there was a human being there, if that makes sense, rather than a dom. And so, but some, there is a mysteriousness there as well, because obviously, you can't tell who you are just from those alone. It's just, but initially that generosity, warmth, as I was saying, I think that comes across.
And how long have you known me now?
We first spoke about 7 weeks ago.
About 7 weeks ago.
Definitely less than 2 months.
Okay.
I think. It was
that's
early.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that went fast. And here you are.
Yeah.
So what has happened in that time from your perspective?
Well, what's happened in that time? So we talked, we met our mutual friends party, um, and then we exchanged.
But you knew who I was.
I knew who you were before then, because of the interviews and the podcast. And I was like, oh, it's Eva Oh. And so I initially I wanted to chat to you because I just wanted to say thank you for putting something like that out there. And just when anyone's representing the scene and the world, that's very important to me. As well as that, I have other friends who've done some really great things, and I just think it's brilliant, and it's just a joy to kind of read or engage with. So yeah, after that, we talked a little bit on Instagram, and
Did you message? Did I message? Did we?
so before I left, we decided let's connect through Instagram, and then very quickly we went to WhatsApp,
Mm-hmm.
and then we were just chatting a bit. But then I think the I love how quickly it moved forward, because it was then you asked me to be involved in a training session for another Dom you want to watch your work. So we talked a little bit, but then it moved quite quickly into that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Why do you say quickly into that? Like it wasn't natural or expected?
maybe just expected. I was
What were you expecting?
don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. Yeah, I'm not sure. But when you said it, it was something that I was interested in being involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, I was also, getting to see your work. I was into work at the time. And
So how did you feel leading up to that?
again, I had no expectations, and I removed all of that because I didn't really know fully what the training sessions involved. So, but I was the reason why I didn't ask or prod is because I was just very happy just to go with whatever that was. So, if it was going to be a sit down conversation, similar to this perhaps, about dynamics, and because I'd seen a few pro-doms years ago, but I've seen a few in my early 20s. So I didn't know whether they wanted to hear from that perspective as well, what it was like to see people. So, but then I was like, well, it might also be demonstrations of
Mm-hmm.
this is this activity, that activity,
Mm-hmm.
that they perhaps might have not seen. So I really didn't know.
So what was it?
It was a session. It was a session.
How did you realize it was a session?
I think I realized immediately because I arrived and you asked me to get down. Well, you gestured to your feet, and I knew that meant that you wanted me to kiss them. And then I was like, okay, fine. And that I was told that I wasn't to talk to or acknowledge the other Dom in the room, and that they were just there to observe. And I was like, okay. Yeah, that's it.
So you walk in without expectations, all of this emerges. What were you thinking during? What did you take away after?
That's interesting because it's, what I was thinking during was, well, to be honest, I don't know if there was much thinking going on. It was just reacting to what was going on. I think my mind was probably quite quickly in a space where it was more just euphoric and nervous, and just in reaction mode rather than
Why?
just reacting to what you were doing and what you were saying. I think, yeah.
Why did you do that? Why did you not question it? Or why did you just suddenly step into, I'm just going to react now?
So that's a good question. I think maybe there was a lot of, I know that you're quite established in what you do and that you've been around for a long, long time and that you're heavily involved in the kink scene. I've been around for a long time. I'm quite involved in the kink scene. I think there was actually very quickly just a trust there, actually. And it's obviously very dangerous to assume that you know someone from what they're putting out on social media or their projects like yours. So it wasn't that. It was just a feeling that I'm safe here. It's all good, um, and also you can, you know, I knew that you were offering these sessions to people. So even though I didn't know the details of that, I knew that was a service that you offered. So yeah, I was just open. I was just very open because you asked me if I was interested in that, and I said yes. And so just knowing in my head that it can go down this road or that one, I was already prepared that, I think I didn't want to expect I'm going to get a session now because that would be, it's a high expectation to something that I didn't think would. But I thought, well, it could happen, and obviously for me that was exciting, and that's why I wanted to go with it as well. It's like this is
So it was a session.
it was a session. It was an incredible opportunity for me.
How would you describe a session?
So a session is, I guess, if we're looking at in a professional way, is that someone who is interested in having some time with the dominatrix is usually that's called a session. So you would contact that dominatrix, and a session could last, I think, usually probably at least an hour or two, all the way up to overnight or weekends. And what happens in that session is, well, first is laid out through communication between the client and the dom about perhaps that client's interests or and then talking about hard limits and things like that. And then it's kind of over to, this is someone who's not a dom, I'm assuming. There's then over to the dom to then piece that together and how they would like. Yeah.
And what did you think of the piecing together?
What did I think in the piecing together?
Once you started thinking again.
Oh, that was after. Yeah, that was on reflection. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it was just in a state of, wow, that was intense. That really connected with me. Everything felt at ease. There was a tension there, but again, as I said, there was a trust that it just flowed, and I was always 2 steps behind, but then reflecting on it afterwards, it was just, I felt comfortable in my nervousness and my, and how intense the session was, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And is that something that you feel often, or is it a motivator for why you're in this space, or like why are you say you've been in kink for a long time. What does that look like? Why are you still in it?
I think, yeah, it doesn't always happen. I mean, I think the people around the scene will have different play partners or short relationships, longer ones, different experiences. I think, I mean, I'm in it because it's such a huge part of me and such a huge part of my identity that I'd have to be part of it. And also, I just enjoy the community aspect. I've got a lot of friends in the kink scene and people that I can relate with really strongly. So um, I think that's why my vanilla friends and vanilla life would just not be fulfilling enough. And it wouldn't be fulfilling enough just to, have sessions or see. It's the relationships and it's the community. It's the reason why. And if I'd be very sad. I'd feel that there was a huge part of me that was missing.
What's this identity?
So I would identify as a switch, sub-leaning. I think heavily sub-leaning actually. I think I was a dominant for a few years in a row, which kind of burned me out a little bit. I think some people had expectations of me in that area. And I was denying the larger part of myself. And so it's that kind of side of me, the moment is kind of shut down. It's just not being drawn to it right now. And I think just identity-wise, again, just in terms of friends, I love being around it and hearing other people's experiences and how they are and what their journeys have been like. And it's just nice to be around conversation around kink and events and even just if you're not talking about it, just around people that are your people, if that makes sense.
What do these people feel like? Well, what's the difference?
I mean, just incredibly liberal, open-minded, accepting, exciting, very fun, and it's just you don't have to do a lot of explaining. I think with this community, I think yeah, that's why.
And when was maybe the first time you touched the community? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. I was in Edinburgh. So I started in the Edinburgh scene, which is very small, very small community. Um, and I was a dom. I'd met someone on Set Life, I think. And so, yeah, that was my first experience of a community. And I was only in Edinburgh for like about 6 months, I think. I was actually living in London, so I was up there, and I came back down to London, and I remember thinking, I still don't have community down here. I don't know anyone, and I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna go to
Pedestal.
Pedestal. So that was my first ever.
Even though you identified as a dom at that.
Wow. I think, yeah, well, I think I definitely was a switch, and I think I was just in a dom space in there, but knew that was, yeah.
Because Pedestal is a female dominance night.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Correct.
And so when did you start to understand the heavy sub-leaning thing?
I think I've always understood it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's been there since I was a kid, and I think the dominant side of me was more of a curiosity. And also there was probably, I think with, probably toxic masculinity, I don't think so much now, but especially when I first got in, I found that most guys would go, would try and have this dominant persona within the scene because probably they felt a bit safer. I don't know. And then it's so funny. A few years later, you just see them all going, "Oh yeah, I've sub," or I'm a sub, I lean more towards sub. It's quite strange. So I think when I was first getting into more the community, it might have been perhaps a side of me was quite worried about showing such vulnerability of and battling against maybe perhaps an expectation. Yeah.
And how did you understand that when you were so young? What does it feel like? What kind of thoughts go through your mind that are like, I understand that this is it? Or is it images, or is it things that you're drawn to?
Yeah. Well,
Because, like, for example, I didn't understand until I had the framework
sure.
of femdom, until I actually entered the dungeon for a while.
Sure.
Did I realize that, oh, hang on, this fits.
Yeah.
I didn't have language for it. I didn't have, and because how I was what wasn't expected of me, and I had to change that a lot. Like, I just didn't have an opportunity to know that was something that I could name and explore. Like, how did you get that?
Yeah, so what was my framework? I think, so I remember when I was about, 6 years old, something like that. I've got a foot fetish, and that is my main fetish. It's the first ever one I was aware of, and every other, rather than kink fetishes that I have, are branches from that. So that was with me from when I can remember having any type of memory. That's it's been such a long time. So there'd be things like, I'm sure a lot of people who have fetishes can really relate with this, but there was things when you play with other kids and things like that, like you might in a kind of like fantasy game, and remember when someone might want to be a princess, or someone might want to be a knight or something like that. And I remember I had this kind of this wooden castle in my bedroom, and so there was naturally, for that type of role play for kids, that was there, that kind of.
Okay.
I remember offering to one. I was like, I can be the floor.
Okay.
And, and so I was like, oh, okay, that's an interesting memory, and then wanting this kind of quite excitement, not to be the princess or the prince or
Yeah.
but to be something.
Interesting. I've never thought, yes, I can be a part of the structure.
Yeah, exactly.
We have an architecture fetish.
Perhaps. So, and it wasn't until much later that, so there was that. And then it was being drawn to, females. And then it was just a fascination, rather than, obviously, when you're that young, it's not a sexual thing. It's obviously feel that way. It's you're just being drawn to it. There's a slight obsession there. And then I remember the first time I heard the words, which was, for me, this is what the click was. I was watching Graham Norton, and at the time, when Graham Norton was around, he was much more edgier. He would look up things on the internet and try and find good to talk to. And there was a woman that was who had a thing for squelching her feet in the mud because of how it felt. And the word fetish came up, and I was like, and I had to ask a friend that's watching it with, how do you spell that? What does that mean? As soon as I got that, I went on the internet and I typed it in, and then I was like, right.
How old are you?
Oh, it's really hard to pin down how old I was then.
Older than 20? Younger?
Oh, way younger. Yeah, way younger. We're talking very early teens, if that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get that.
Thank you, Graham Norton. Yeah.
And how has it played out since then?
Um, it was difficult. It was difficult because then there I am. I know what this is now, and I've got access to the internet. So then I'm looking up all the at the time food stuff, which is like a treasure chest, great.
Okay.
But then I was very quickly going already because they were making fun of this person, I think on the Graham Norton show already, and I knew anyway because when I was growing up, feet are seen as something that are dirty, that are you don't touch, or people are quite freaked out by feet. Can be. I've almost got a bit of a phobia about either other people's feet or having their own touched or whatever, and I get that. But then what that does is give me a signal, someone like me, that this is something that you should not talk about and that you should be ashamed of, and that. So, and obviously at that age, I'm then obviously not going to talk about that at school. I'm not going to talk about when other guys are talking about girls that they fancy. I'm not going to go, yeah, did you notice how free? Like I'm not going to be bringing up anything like that. And so then I had to kind of go through growing up holding something quite tight to my chest. And so it wasn't until much later that I think that's why the community means so much. I think.
And when did you realize you didn't? It's actually super common.
Exactly. The most common.
The most.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of.
You're just like everyone else.
Okay, yeah, sure, of course. Well, it would have been, probably, very late teens, early 20s.
Okay.
Um,
About a decade.
yeah,
Formative time.
yeah.
Okay. And did you ask your partners?
Yeah, I did. I mean, that was another tricky thing because, I would, it's just that, but it's more than just feet. It's about dynamic. It's and also that person is just doing that thing just for you. I don't. It loses it. They, they don't. It doesn't need to be their fetish. God, with food fetishes, with involving those who don't identify as male. I just, I think it's, rarer. And I think in terms of getting something out of it sexually is what I mean. So I think, yeah, I think it always felt like a bit like, I'll do this for you, and then we'll do that, and we'll do something else.
So what dynamic were you looking for?
I was looking for like a DS dynamic, for sure. I was looking.
Did you have vocabulary for that?
No, not really. That kind of built up over time, probably again from late teens. Just from online community boards and chat rooms and websites and things like that. You kind of pick up stuff.
And have you ever been able to experience that dynamic in a satisfying way?
Yeah. Yeah, I have. Definitely. But yeah, it certainly took a long time to get to that stage.
What did it take to get to that stage?
I think perhaps maybe me knowing myself a bit better because, it's great I can say I'm foot fetish, I like some of these things, but I think I had to maybe like get an opportunity to play with some people and discover some things before I go, oh, okay, I really like that, or and just kind of growing up and maturing as a person. I think that helped. Um, it being more satisfying, I think, because you just learn more.
When was the first time you got to experience the dynamic in a satisfying way, in a way that you were conscious of?
Um, Probably when I started going to the London scene. You know, it's probably around about the time where I went to Pedestal, and then um, after that, and not every experience has been. I'm talking. There's pockets of time where there'll be things that that I really connected with. That I've met that level along the way. Obviously, that hasn't always been like that, but from it would have been right about then. So we're talking about 10 years ago.
10. And have any of those been relationships? Or has it been more one-off?
No, there has been relationships, a type of relationship. Yeah. I think yeah.
What does that look like, or what did that look like?
So I think well, there was some sort of there was this connection there. It went a bit deeper. So the one-off stuff is great. If it's connected, if both parties are feeling like they're obviously getting a lot from it, then that is great. But for me, the one-off stuff, you can't really hold it. You compare it against something that has there's just more of a connection with it. That there's more longevity with. Because then you get to know that person. You can go deeper. You can build on something, a spark, rather than just being a spark in it.
So what did the deeper connection look like? Like, were you living together? Did that play out in day-to-day? Like,
well, I would actually, I'd probably compare a few things here. So I think in terms of a relationship, like living together, that not so much. There's the other relationships I've had. There has been, and some have been longer, some have been shorter. There's just been that dynamic. Now, when I say that dynamic, I don't mean that we were necessarily living 24/7 stuff. We might just almost forget what that dynamic is if we're having coffee or lunch or whatever. But when we wanted to be, it was there. So that could be every time we played, frequently, it would always be there. But perhaps if we were not with each other, we might do, things, instructions, or there might be chastity involved. There might be tasks when we're not physically together. So there's that, which then felt just that there was more of just more of a connection. So this to say, I think being not just to play and that's it. There's a place for that, and I like that. That's great. I just think that it's interesting when we can also just just build up on that a little bit as well.
what does 24/7 look like to you?
So I think a lot of, and I've certainly heard this, I think a lot of subs might love the idea of 24/7. There's a huge fantasy I think that's when you meet then reality. What does that look like? So I think 24/7 for me would be I think just having just knowing your positions and what your dynamic is and what that relationship is, and just being very, very clear, and every communication that you have that is present.
And you feel like you haven't had that before?
In shorter length, yeah. Not in a long term way, no.
Do you think that the dynamic wavers with me?
No. Yeah. No, I don't.
What makes you say that?
Well, as I said, I just think the impression that I had before we chatted was that this is just something that was intertwined. This was just in your bones, and it was just part of you. So it then didn't surprise me that when we started talking that I just felt that I was in a certain box.
Do you like boxes?
Yeah.
Cages.
Yeah. Certain cage. Yeah.
Okay. And how does that feel?
It feels nice. It feels good. I think. Yeah, I think it does feel really good because it's.
What's the difference, do you think? Because, like, obviously I just live my own reality. And I'm, like you say, everything is merged. I don't know how to compartmentalize. It's not how my brain works. It's very, very uncomfortable for me to be like, oh, I need to be like this now. I'll only last maybe half an hour, and then I need to get the hell out of there. But and so it's natural for me to have myself in a certain position, and people can orient themselves around that or get out. That's kind of we've had a conversation. I remember you were talking about wanting to like express needs, and I said something like, do you remember this conversation? I said something like, it's great that you're aware of your needs, but I really don't give a shit. At the end of the day, it's like you either orientate or it doesn't work, and I'm happy if your needs are getting met, and if they're not, somewhere else. But I don't know how to do this movement. Is it more normal that people know how to move themselves?
This question. Back to the question. I think that's what most people do.
They'll just shift. But they don't feel like a resentment or anything about this?
I don't know. I think, well, I can't speak for no, but also, but also, I think it's hard for me to talk about someone who identifies as being a dom, about what. So they, I don't know. Maybe they take pleasure or power knowing what that is and then using it in some way. Maybe they get satisfaction out of seeing their self get off on some things. I don't know. I don't know what that is.
So people who experience access but don't necessarily need to embody it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I
And where do you live on that continuum?
So I think a huge for me is pleasing someone. So I think there are people out there, or there is you can see a professional if you want to get as you called it once, a shopping list kind of ticked off. great. But I think I think a lot of submissives would say that part of the pleasure or all the pleasure is the service or making their dominant or a dominant satisfied, happy.
Do you think you could live in a 24/7 arrangement?
I don't know. I think my since that little kid who wanted to be the floor would go, please let me be the floor 24/7. Yeah. I think there's I think that there's or to serve 24/7. I think there's certainly the fantasy is there. It's just I don't know because I don't really know what that looks like, and I don't know yeah, I don't know how possible it would be, how if both parties would be completely satisfied.
I think it's always a
Mm,
question of
I think so. That's exactly it. Yeah. That's
yeah.
exactly it.
Yeah. So my main partner that you're aware of, like, I wouldn't say that he would use any of the words that you're able to use, but the boxes are there. They don't waver, you know? And I mean, we don't live together. We only see each other maybe twice a week, like 2 consecutive days or something. But the expectation and the identity is always there. And the things that need to happen every day are always there. So and there's still lives that can be led, you know, and there's still practicalities. But at the end of the day, I am the only priority. And it seems workable. But an issue of compatibility and somebody's willingness to move or be moved, or be steadfast, I guess. So I think that it is possible, but it's like how communicative everyone is and how determined everyone is and how especially confident everyone is. You know, like I'm entirely in myself and he's entirely in himself. And if we question either, we will consider it. But at the end of the day, there is an entity at play, and that doesn't. He's probably the most confident person that I know in that. Even when I question, there's just a steadiness there that will not get flung, you know? And I question deeply. Yeah. And when others question, there's just like a knowing, you know? Yeah. And he doesn't have the capacity to maybe strive for or have the ambition that maybe you would normally associate with the word confidence. But how I see it is just like how I have a steadfastness of being, he does too. So I think in those scenarios, it's about like an internal possibility of dynamic. And how it plays out is natural from there. Yeah, but I think maybe that surety is very hard to come by.
I think so, and yeah, I think so, and that makes sense. And I think it's that communication. I think is just key, and it sounds so simple and so easy, but I think perhaps some people don't want to shatter the mysteriousness or I don't know what it is, but I think communicating about what it is that you need, like what you're looking for, to see then if you are compatible, I think is probably, and it might not even be compatible in that way, but maybe there might still be something that's workable there. I don't know, but then if it's not fully compatible, maybe one party might not be interested. I think it's important just to say.
And an internal communication.
Oh God, yeah.
But when you were saying that you've just grown up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Perhaps. And how satisfied do you feel about your access to that part of you, to the expression of it at the moment?
Yeah, good. I mean, yeah, especially when I look back and I go, either how clueless I was or kind of yeah, just kind of dazzled by things. So I think, yeah, just more grounded and more probably sure of certain bits. I mean, there's always learning to do though, right? You know, and I think especially each interaction, connection, relationship, that's a new thing. So I think there's always some sort of growing or learning to do, I think. Even if you feel certain on some things or sure of some things, there might be, yeah, I didn't think about that or didn't see that.
An overall sense of contentment.
Yeah.
With the fact that you understand.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I think I'm at a similar space, very happy in my understanding, and it's just about little bits of entertainment.
Growing up the tweet.
Anything you'd like to add? Did I miss out on anything?
I don't think you have. I don't know. I don't think you have.
So we're going to make this teakink podcast thing. I usually say thank you for listening and speak to you next.